Hey, welcome to session number 2. How do I step closer to God when I'm facing a giant? You might go, what are you talking about, a giant? Well, one of the most powerful stories that even little kids learn if they grow up in church is about David and the giant in 1 Samuel 17. And this is an amazing story about how the enemy intimidates. He intimidates in a big way. You see, hidden in that story, David had already been anointed king in the previous chapter, but now he had to go back out in the field. His daddy still overlooked him. You think you outgrow that, but that's not what happened. And now his brothers are out on the front lines of a battle, and they're battling an enemy that had somebody that was bigger than anybody else. He was a massive giant. And this massive giant intimidated an entire army of Israelites. His name was Goliath. And Goliath would come out and he'd go, send somebody out to fight me. Nobody had the guts to get up and fight this guy that seemed bigger than life. Even though they were an army and they were a collective group of people that were called God's chosen people, Israel. I mean, think back, if you would, all the way back to Egypt when God led Israel out of their slavery and crossed the Red Sea and these amazing miracles, and God fed them in the wilderness and he took care of them, and then he crossed them into the promised land, and Israel had this special relationship with God. They were God's chosen people. And as long as they called upon God, he did miracles for them. But now we reach a point in the story where it's as if Israel's forgotten who they are, and they're intimidated by an enemy. Fear and intimidation can have a powerful impact on us. You know, I face it, you face it. Intimidation and fear can stop us from being who we were designed to be. Maybe when you were a little kid, you had a dream of being something when you grew up, or maybe you dream that your marriage would stay together, or you thought that maybe when you got into a particular job, everything would work out, but a circumstance popped up, or a certain type of person that intimidates you showed up, and you find yourself shriveling up. You're not really all that you could be. You know, in the New Testament, it says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. God doesn't want us to stay in that fear. He wants us to overcome it. Other versions say God has not given us a spirit of fear and intimidation. Intimidation, it comes from the root words that we get neuter from. I know this is a PG group talk today, but to neuter something is to cut it off from the power. It's to unplug something from the wall. It's as if you had all the muscles, all the capacity to do something, and yet the power is shut off, and now it's not functioning the way it should. And that can happen to us in our lives. We can have experiences hit us in the gut, knock the wind out of us, and somehow we're just not all that we could be. Or we remember who we used to be when we were younger. And in our story, we go, wow, I wonder what I would be if I wasn't intimidated. And this is the power of the story of David. You see, somehow David was the one person in all of Israel that overcame the power of intimidation. And he did it by his lifestyle of connection to God. See, he came up on the war front, and he was delivering food. He was bringing it up to his brothers, and here on the battlefield, and taking care of everybody. And he overhears Goliath taunting and intimidating all the armies. Something inside of David said, this isn't right. We're better than that. We're the people of God. And all of his confidence comes from that personal heart relationship that he had with God, that secret weapon of worship. Somehow, in the middle of intimidation, he found a way to recall who God really was. You see, when we get into life and all the circumstances we face, maybe you lost a job, or maybe something difficult happened to you, and now it's as if you lost some of your dream. Right at that moment, it's as if we forget who we are. And maybe we even forget who God is. And in that moment, the devil is a liar. He comes after us and he wants to wrap us up in a lie and keep us intimidated, keep us under the control of the giants in our life. I don't know what the giant is in your life. But I do know this, that if we could follow what David did a powerful thing. Instead of shrinking back and running away, hiding behind his brothers, he went all the way to confront this giant. Now he had to go through a few steps to get there, and he ended up talking to the king, Saul, and Saul tried to put all of his armor on, and as a little boy, the armor of Saul didn't fit him, and it weighed him down. And he said, I can't live like this. I got to be who I am. So he needed to be who he was out in the field when he would sing his song to the Lord, and he would fight the lion and the bear and protect his sheep. And he had discovered that God was with him in the field. He had a confidence because God was with him in the private in the field, that God would be with him on the battlefront. And so David says, I want to go. And he picks up some stones, and those stones were just the same type of thing with the sling that he would use on the animals that would try to come and destroy his flock as a shepherd. And he picked those stones up and he faced down Goliath. He walked toward his giants. He moved toward him. And then he declares who God is to him. He says, Goliath, you come at me with all your spears and all your raw power. I don't know what the equivalent would be today in our video game era with all the weaponry. You come at me with all that stuff that you got. He says, but I come to you in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. And he comes with a confidence that came from his private worship, and he faced down his giants. And as he did, he took one smooth stone, he slung it at the giant, and it hit him in the forehead, and he fell dead. And then David cut his head off and said, you're not coming back to life. You're not coming after my country. And because he did that, Israel then won the battle that day. Now, I'm not proclaiming that you're going to win the battle for America against the world or something like that. But I do know this, that if you and I can turn in the middle of, and acknowledge who the giants are in our life, and considering all the battles that we face, internal intimidation, our own failures sometimes stop us. You know, we might think, I failed before, so I don't want to try again. But if instead we go, you know what if I did try again? What if I strengthened myself in the Lord just like David did? What if I found my strength in who he is? And I didn't let the intimidation cut me off from the power of who God calls me to be. What if I looked at the Word of God and I began to discover all the things that he says about me, and discover that I am a son or a daughter of heaven, that I'm adopted into the family of heaven, that even if the devil comes at me with lies and tries to intimidate me, I hide in the name of the Lord and I face down my giants, whatever those giants are. What could happen for your family? What could happen in the future of your story? What could happen in your city? And I'm just saying this. We can step closer when we're facing our giants. When we're facing fear and all the things that are around us, we can step closer to God. And what if we did? Man, what could happen? Dads, what would happen if you stepped closer to God in the middle of facing your giant and your kids got the benefit from it? Moms, what if you did that? What if you're a single adult and instead of being intimidated and rehearsing all the lies of the enemy, you begin to declare who God is, and who he is to you, and who you are in his family? What could happen in your story? I believe that we can step closer to God when we're facing our giants. We don't need to back away. We need to lean in, but not ignorantly, but in the power and the strength of the Lord. Well, group hosts, it's your turn to take it from here. I'm so excited to hear about the stories, what you guys talk about today.